Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! The air inside was thick with the scent of yesterday's takeout and weeks-old washing, a familiar blend that greeted him each evening. A colorful calendar caught his eye, reminding him that October's iconic event was fast approaching, its proximity emphasized by a vivid red circle. That lucrative reward, the motivation he needed, was boldly declared on the invitation, an effortless $1,000 for the night's most creative creation. His gaze drifted across the room, idly noting the lack of inspiration, as he ran a hand through his sun-kissed brown tresses. Just 7 days until the festivities, but no ideas were manifesting. He'd spent all night scouring the web, but every suggestion paled compared to previous events. Last year's efforts failed dismally, a lesson in setting the bar too low. Every decent costume is either sold out or garbage. Jace Miller, 32, IT specialist and desperately in need of a win, scrolled through page after page of Halloween costumes. Vampire? Done to death. Superhero? Everyone would be wearing capes. Monster? Too much makeup to maintain all night. The clock ticked past midnight when a peculiar advertisement appeared in the sidebar. Revolutionary female transformation kit. So realistic, you'll be unrecognizable. The image showed a before and after. An ordinary-looking man transformed into a stunning woman in an elegant emerald gown. Yeah, right, Jace snorted, but curiosity won out. One click led to a sleek website with testimonials and product descriptions. Our proprietary silicone technology creates a seamless transformation, perfect for theater, cosplay, or making an unforgettable impression at your next event. Limited stock available. Ships overnight. The kit included everything. A full-body silicone suit with realistic skin texture, breast forms, hip pads, makeup, and a stunning emerald evening gown with matching silver accessories. The price made Jace wince, but the $1,000 prize would more than cover it. What the hell? Jace muttered, reaching for a credit card.
At least no one will recognize me.
The confirmation email promised delivery in 3 days. Just enough time to learn how to walk in heels before the party. 3 days later, a discreet black box arrived. Inside, nestled in tissue paper, lay what looked like a second skin. The silicone felt strangely warm to the touch, almost lifelike. Detailed instructions explained the application process, recommending a special adhesive spray included in the package. Apply to clean skin. For best results, shave body hair and use the enclosed preparation wipes before application. The transformation suit is designed to bond temporarily with your skin for a seamless appearance. Jace spent the afternoon following the instructions meticulously. The preparation wipes left a tingling sensation on the skin. The suit itself was challenging to put on, clinging and conforming in ways that seemed almost intelligent. It molded perfectly to every contour, creating a feminine shape with surprising realism. The breast forms felt unnervingly natural once attached, and the hip pads gave a perfect hourglass figure. The facepiece was the most impressive, blending seamlessly at the edges, creating softer features that were distinctly feminine, yet somehow familiar. After 3 hours of careful application, styling the included brown wig, and following the makeup tutorial, Jace stared at a stranger in the mirror. A beautiful woman with soft curves, wearing an emerald gown that caught the light like liquid jewelry. Holy shit, came the whisper, the voice instinctively higher. This is incredible. The transformation was complete down to the smallest detail. Even the hands looked smaller, more delicate. The silver accessories, Bangles, earrings, and a delicate necklace added the perfect finishing touch. Walking in the included silver heels took practice, but by the night of the party, Jace had mastered a convincing gait. The emerald gown flowed like water with each movement, catching the light in hypnotic patterns. The Halloween party was at a downtown hotel ballroom, decorated with elaborate spiderwebs and glowing pumpkins. Heads turned as Jace entered. The costume wasn't scary or typical Halloween fare, but it was undeniably impressive. "And you are?" asked the hostess at the entrance, clipboard in hand for the costume contest. A moment of panic. Jace hadn't thought about a character name.
"Annie,"
came the response, the name appearing from nowhere. "I'm myself from an alternate reality." The hostess smiled, writing it down. "Creative. Good luck in the contest." Throughout the night, not a single person recognized Jace. Old friends from work chatted, complimenting the amazing costume, never suspecting who was beneath it. The realistic suit moved naturally, and the adhesive held everything perfectly in place, despite hours of mingling and dancing.
"You should enter pageants,"
said Jace's boss, completely unaware he was speaking to his employee.
"That's the most convincing gender transformation I've ever seen."
By midnight, when the costume contest winners were announced, Jace had almost forgotten about the competition, having enjoyed the anonymous freedom too much.
"And the grand prize goes to Annie for the most convincing alternate reality transformation."
The emerald gown sparkled under the spotlight as Jace accepted the envelope containing the $1,000 prize. Applause filled the room. "Speech!" someone called. "I'm just glad the real me could make it tonight," Jace said with a smile, voice still in that higher register. "Sometimes we need to see ourselves differently to understand who we truly are." The crowd loved it, assuming it was part of the character. Later that night, exhausted but exhilarated, Jace returned home with the prize money and a trophy. According to the instructions, the suit should be removed with the special solvent provided in the kit. But something felt strange. The edges that should have been visible seemed to have disappeared entirely. The solvent didn't work as expected. The silicone didn't lift away from the skin. It seemed to have bonded more permanently than advertised. Panicking slightly, Jace scrubbed harder, but only succeeded in making the skin red and irritated.
"This isn't happening,"
Jace muttered, examining the areas where the suit should have ended. There were no seams, no edges, just smooth skin, transitioning naturally. An email to the company received an automatic response. "Thank you for your purchase. Our transformation kits are designed for the ultimate realistic experience. The bonding effect will naturally release within 24 or 48 hours. Enjoy your transformation." Relieved, but still concerned, Jace decided to sleep in the costume. The emerald gown was carefully hung up, replaced with a soft nightgown included in the kit. Even without the dress, the feminine form remained perfectly intact. Morning came, and nothing had changed. The suit still wouldn't budge. Another email to the company went unanswered. A week passed, then another. The silicone body seemed to be merging with Jace's real body in subtle ways. The breast forms, once clearly separate pieces, now felt like actual tissue. Sensation had developed where there should have been none. By Thanksgiving, a month after Halloween, Jace had reluctantly purchased female clothing, unable to wear men's clothes over the new feminine form. The original brown wig had somehow fused with the scalp, the hair appearing to grow naturally. The prize money was spent on burgundy pencil skirts and cream-colored cashmere sweaters that complemented this new reality. Medical tests were inconclusive. Doctors were baffled by what they saw: tissue that appeared completely female and natural, DNA tests that fluctuated between male and female results. "I've never seen anything like this," one specialist admitted. "It's as if your body is gradually accepting and incorporating the external elements, transforming your actual cellular structure." 2 months after Halloween, Jace, now living as Annie full-time, stood in front of the closet, making a decision. The male clothes hadn't been worn since that fateful night. They hung like artifacts from someone else's life. "Time to let go," Annie said softly, her voice now permanently settled into its female register without effort. That afternoon, bags of men's clothing were donated to a local charity. The male driver's license was replaced with one showing Annie's face and female gender marker, after extensive paperwork and doctor's letters explaining the unusual situation. The company that made the revolutionary female transformation kit had vanished entirely. Their website was gone, social media accounts deleted. The only evidence it had ever existed was Annie herself, and the emerald gown hanging in her closet like a memory of the night everything changed. Winter arrived, and with it came a strange peace. Annie's body continued its subtle changes, becoming more naturally female with each passing week. The burgundy pencil skirts and cream sweaters became her signature look at the IT company where she still worked, her colleagues now fully accepting her as Annie after the initial shock and adjustment. One evening in December, as snow fell outside her apartment window, Annie received a mysterious envelope in the mail. Inside was a handwritten note on luxurious paper. "Some transformations are meant to be permanent. You were always meant to be, Annie. The outer form now matches the inner truth. Consider it our gift. No return necessary." There was no signature, no return address. Annie stood by the window for a long time, watching snowflakes drift past the streetlights. The emerald gown hung in her closet, a reminder of a Halloween night that had changed everything. Her reflection in the window showed soft brown hair that now reached past her shoulders, growing naturally from her scalp. The face that looked back was completely female, with no trace of the silicone mask that had started this journey. "No return necessary," Annie whispered, letting the note fall from her fingers. She smoothed her burgundy skirt and straightened her cream sweater. No return wanted. Spring arrived with cherry blossoms and warm breezes. Annie sat in a coffee shop, laptop open, working remotely for the day. Her brown hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, her burgundy dress complemented by a delicate silver necklace, the same one from the transformation kit, the only piece she still wore regularly. "Is this seat taken?" asked a voice. Annie looked up to see a man about her age, coffee in hand, gesturing to the empty chair across from her. "It's all yours," she replied with a smile. "I'm David," he said, sitting down. "I hope I'm not interrupting your work." "Annie," she introduced herself. "And no, I could use a break." Their conversation flowed easily. He was a graphic designer. She explained she worked in IT. They discovered shared interests in obscure sci-fi shows and hiking trails outside the city. "This might be forward," David said, as they were both packing up to leave. "But would you like to get dinner sometime?" Annie hesitated for just a moment. Her dating life had been on hold during the transformation. She'd needed time to understand her new self. But now, "I'd like that," she answered, surprising herself with how right it felt. That night, Annie stood in front of her closet, considering what to wear for their upcoming date. Her fingers brushed against the emerald gown, still hanging where she'd placed it months ago. She hadn't worn it since that Halloween night, but she couldn't bring herself to part with it either. Next to it hung rows of burgundy, cream, and navy clothes. Her new wardrobe, carefully curated over months of discovering her style. Her hand lingered on a burgundy dress with subtle silver threading. Perfect for a first date. As she dressed, Annie caught sight of herself in the mirror. The transformation that had once been external was now complete on every level. Her body was entirely female, with no trace of the costume that had started it all. Medical tests now consistently returned female results. The transformation kit's tagline echoed in her mind. "So realistic, you'll be unrecognizable." They hadn't lied. The old Jace was unrecognizable now, even to Annie herself. Summer came, and with it, Annie's 1-year anniversary of living as herself. She and David had been dating for 3 months. He knew her story. She'd told him on their 3rd date, nervous but unwilling to build a relationship on secrets. "That's easily the most interesting how I found myself story I've ever heard," he'd said, reaching for her hand across the table. "Thank you for trusting me with it." Now they sat on a blanket in the park, enjoying a picnic lunch on a sunny Saturday. Annie wore a cream sundress, her brown hair loose around her shoulders.
"I have something for you,"
David said, reaching into his pocket. He pulled out a small box.
"It's not what you might think,"
he added quickly, seeing her expression. "Open it." Inside was a silver charm for her bracelet, a small emerald gown.
"To commemorate the costume that changed everything," he explained. "I had it custom made."
Annie felt tears spring to her eyes as she attached it to her bracelet. "It's perfect," she whispered. That evening, alone in her apartment, Annie pulled the actual emerald gown from her closet. She hadn't worn it since that Halloween night, but something compelled her to try it on again. The gown slipped over her head easily, settling perfectly against her curves that were now entirely her own. She stood before the mirror, marveling at how different this moment was from the first time she'd worn it. Then, she'd been Jace, wearing an elaborate costume. Now, she was simply Annie, wearing a beautiful dress that matched her eyes. Her phone chimed with a text from David. "Thinking of you. Dinner tomorrow?" Annie smiled, typing back her reply. She hung the gown back in her closet, knowing she would keep it always, not as a reminder of what she'd lost, but as a celebration of what she'd found. Fall returned, the anniversary of that fateful Halloween approaching. Annie's life had settled into a comfortable rhythm. Her job had promoted her to team lead. Her relationship with David was growing stronger. The burgundy pencil skirts and cream sweaters still featured prominently in her wardrobe, now supplemented with other colors and styles as she continued to explore her taste. The mystery of the transformation kit remained unsolved. No trace of the company had ever reappeared. Occasionally, Annie would search online, wondering if others had experienced similar transformations, but she never found anything conclusive. "What are you going to be for Halloween this year?" David asked as they walked through a park blazing with autumn colors. "Given your history with costumes, I'm expecting something spectacular." Annie laughed, her brown hair catching the afternoon sunlight. "I think I've had enough transformation for one lifetime. Maybe I'll just wear cat ears."
"Probably wise,"
he agreed, squeezing her hand.
"Though I have to say, that emerald gown was pretty amazing."
"It changed my life," Annie said softly. Literally. That night, she dreamed of the mysterious company, of silicone that moved like living tissue. of emerald fabric that shimmered with secrets. In the dream, she received another black box, this one containing a note. The next transformation awaits. She woke with a start, heart racing. The dream had seemed so real. Her fingers touched her face, her neck, the curve of her breast. All her own now, all real. On her dresser, her silver jewelry caught the moonlight, the necklace, earrings, and bangles from the transformation kit. She hadn't worn the full set since that night, only the necklace occasionally. Annie got out of bed and went to her closet. The emerald gown hung exactly where it always did. She touched the fabric, half expecting it to move beneath her fingers, but it was just cloth now. Beautiful, but ordinary. The morning of Halloween, 1 year after her transformation began, Annie received a package. There was no return address, no shipping label, just a small black box sitting outside her apartment door. Her hands trembled as she brought it inside, setting it on the coffee table. It looked identical to the box that had contained the transformation kit a year ago. For a long moment, she simply stared at it. Then, taking a deep breath, she lifted the lid. Inside was a silver charm bracelet with a single charm. A small emerald dress, identical to the one David had given her months ago. Beneath it lay a note. The only transformation left is the one you choose. Live well, Annie. Tears sprang to her eyes as she fastened the bracelet around her wrist, next to the one David had given her. 2 identical charms, side by side. That evening, Annie dressed for David's Halloween party in a simple black dress with cat ears, just as she'd planned. As she was about to leave, her eyes fell on the emerald gown. On impulse, she changed her plans. The gown still fit perfectly, embracing her curves as if it had been made for the woman she had become, not the man she'd once been. The silver jewelry completed the outfit. The necklace, earrings, and bangles reunited for the first time in a year. Looking in the mirror, Annie saw both her past and present reflected back at her, the costume that had become reality, the disguise that had revealed truth. David's eyes widened when she arrived at his party.
Wow,
he breathed. You look incredible. I thought it was time to reclaim this dress, Annie explained, the emerald fabric catching the light as she moved. It's just a beautiful gown now, not a transformation kit. Just me wearing a dress I love. Later, as they danced in David's living room, he leaned close to whisper in her ear. Are you happy, Annie, with everything that happened? Annie thought about the journey of the past year, the shock and fear of the initial transformation, the gradual acceptance, the discovery of a self that felt more authentic than anything she'd known before. I am, she answered honestly. I never expected my life to take this turn, but now I can't imagine any other path. The music changed to a slower song. David's arms tightened around her waist, the emerald fabric of her gown soft between them. What do you think happened to that company? He asked. The one that made the transformation kit? Annie shook her head, the silver earrings catching the light. I don't know. Sometimes I wonder if they were ever real at all, or if they were something else entirely, something magical. Well, I for one am grateful for whatever magic brought you into being, David said, spinning her gently under the Halloween decorations hanging from his ceiling. Later that night, Annie stood on David's balcony, looking out at the city dressed in Halloween lights. The cool autumn air brushed against her skin, her very real skin that had once been silicone. Her hand went to the silver necklace at her throat. The only physical reminders of her transformation were the emerald gown she wore and the silver jewelry that adorned her. Everything else, her body, her identity, her life, had merged into a seamless whole. Inside, the party continued. Annie could see David through the glass doors, laughing with friends. He caught her eye and smiled. A private smile meant just for her. Annie smiled back, feeling the last pieces of her journey fall into place. The transformation was complete, not because her body had fully changed, but because she had finally, completely accepted the woman she had become. The emerald gown caught the moonlight as she turned to rejoin the party, stepping back into the warmth, back into her life. Not Jace in disguise, not Annie emerging from a costume, but simply herself, finally, completely herself. Winter settled over the city with a blanket of snow and holiday lights. Annie and David celebrated their first Christmas together in her apartment, a small tree twinkling in the corner. "I have something for you," David said, handing her a package wrapped in silver paper. Inside was a framed photograph from the Halloween party 2 months earlier. Annie in the emerald gown, laughing, radiant, completely herself. "This is how I'll always see you," David said softly. "Beautiful, brave, and absolutely authentic." Annie touched the photograph, remembering that night, remembering the year of transformation that had led to it. "I have something for you, too," she said, reaching under the tree for a small package. David unwrapped it to find a key on a silver keychain. "Move in with me," Annie said. "If you want to." His answer was in his kiss. Spring returned, bringing with it new beginnings. Annie and David settled into their shared life, their routines merging as easily as their furniture had. One evening, as they walked home from dinner, they passed a small boutique with an emerald dress in the window. Not the same as Annie's gown, but similar enough to catch her attention. "Look familiar?" David asked, following her gaze. Annie smiled, squeezing his hand. "Some things stay with you forever." They continued walking, passing a young man sitting alone on a bench, looking lost and uncertain. For a moment, Annie thought she saw something familiar in his expression, the same searching look she'd once worn herself. Before she could decide whether to speak to him, her phone chimed with a notification. It was an email from an unknown sender, with no subject line. The body contained only an address and a time, tomorrow afternoon. "What is it?" David asked, noticing her expression. Annie showed him the email. "It could be nothing," she said. "Probably spam." But they both knew it wasn't. The next day, they stood outside the address from the email, a small, unmarked storefront with frosted windows. At exactly the time specified, the door opened. Inside was a showroom, minimalist and elegant. Glass cases displayed what appeared to be costume pieces, exceptionally realistic masks, bodysuits, elaborate outfits. A woman approached them, tall and poised, with an ageless quality to her features. "Annie," she said with a smile, "we've been expecting you." "You're the ones who made the transformation kit," Annie said. It wasn't a question. The woman nodded. "We create possibilities, pathways to authentic selves. Not everyone who uses our products experiences what you did. The transformation only completes when it aligns with inner truth. Why me? Annie asked. Why did it work for me? Because you were already Annie inside, the woman replied simply. The kit merely provided the bridge you needed to cross. She gestured to a wall where photographs hung. Dozens of people, all smiling, all transformed in various ways. You're not alone. We've been helping people find themselves for longer than you might believe. The young man in the park yesterday, Annie said suddenly. Is he one of your clients? The woman smiled enigmatically. Everyone finds their path in different ways. Some need more help than others. She moved to a glass case, removing a small black box identical to the one Annie had received a year ago. We don't usually reveal ourselves like this, but your journey was particularly meaningful. We wanted you to understand that what happened wasn't an accident or a malfunction. It was meant to be, Annie finished. Precisely. The woman handed the box to Annie. A gift to commemorate your transformation. Inside was a small silver charm. Not an emerald dress this time, but a perfect miniature of a black box with the lid open, revealing a tiny spark of light inside. For your bracelet, the woman explained. A reminder that transformation is always possible, always within reach. As Annie and David left the shop, she turned back for one last look. The storefront had changed. Now it appeared to be an ordinary costume shop with Halloween masks in the window, despite the spring season. Will I ever understand exactly what happened to me? Annie asked, her fingers touching the new charm now hanging beside the emerald dress on her bracelet. David squeezed her hand. Does it matter? You're here.
You're you.
Annie thought about the photographs on the wall, all those transformed faces. She thought about her emerald gown hanging in their closet at home, her silver jewelry in its box, her burgundy pencil skirts and cream sweaters that had carried her through the early days of her new life. No, she said finally. It doesn't matter how I got here, only that I arrived. They walked home through the spring afternoon, hand in hand. Annie's brown hair caught the sunlight. Her burgundy dress moved with each step. From the outside, she was simply a woman walking with the man she loved. But she carried within her the memory of transformation, the knowledge that change, real, profound change, was possible. Not just in appearance, but in essence. Behind them, the costume shop shimmered briefly in the afternoon light, then settled back into ordinary reality. Waiting for the next person who needed to find their true self, waiting to offer another chance at transformation. Annie never looked back. She didn't need to. Everything she needed lay ahead in the life she had created, in the self she had become. The emerald gown hung in her closet like a memory, but Annie herself moved forward, completely and authentically herself at last. Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!